Greetings, beloved. I am back today with another cotton dyeing experiment, but this time will be a little different because I do not have any video of that process because I decided at the last minute to make a video about it. Over the weekend, I did a little bit more research into the science of cotton dyeing, not just yarn, but cotton shirts, handkerchiefs, just cotton in general. And I found out quite a bit more information that I didn't know previously about it. And I'm a little bit closer to success. As you guys know from my previous videos, I've been trying my best to get a vibrant color out of these yarns, whether it be letting it sit several hours versus many hours, or whether it's the fixative, the salt, the soda ash. I even tried vinegar just to see. Lots of different experiments, but I found some really interesting information that I hadn't seen before. And I just decided, just on a whim, I had some fingering weight yarn that was already hanged up that I was going to use for another experiment. So I thought, okay, this is it. I'm going to use it for this and see what happens. Just see what happens. I actually don't know what I'm going to do with it because I don't do fingering. I don't know. Maybe this is my time to learn. But anyways, this is what I did. I found out that you actually need both the salt water and the soda ash. I even tried actually soaking the cotton in a mixture, a salt, soda ash, water mixture. I even tried that. But the way that I was doing it was wrong. So I found two different sources that I mostly went by. And I took a little bit of information from one and a little bit from another, put them together, and tried this process out. And I started off with dip dyeing. As you guys know, most of my yarn that I sell in my Etsy shop is, painted, or it's not dip dyed. It's like different colors all over. But I started off with dip dye just to see what would happen, just to see what it looked like. And before I did anything, I washed it in Synthropool, which is a enzyme detergent. It's a textile detergent. It's like a industrial type detergent, and it smells industrial. I love the smell of it, but I used that because it recommended an enzyme detergent. And I washed it out good first, and then I laid it out like I normally would. I'm sorry, this was dip dye. Correction. I done it. It was in a bucket, like a little pan is what I had used. And what it said was, first to wash it, which I did. And then I had to make a salt and water mixture. And another website had recommended letting it sit overnight, or, for up to 3 months. But I didn't do that. The other website did not say to do that. So what I did was I mixed up this salt water mixture. And then it said you can store it, separately for as long as you want, up to 3 months. But it's basically like you take a cup of this mixture and you add some soda ash to it. And I believe it was like 1.5 teaspoons of salt for the salt water mixture for every 2 cups of water, and it's 2 teaspoons of soda ash for every 2 cups of the salt water mixture. But what it says was to take the salt water mixture and add the soda ash into it, stir it up really good, then you're ready to add your dye. But it's only good for about 6 hours. After that 6 hours, it loses potency, which I had heard that fiber reactive dyes, and that's what I was using, can lose its potency. And I've done experiments, well, sort of. I was going to do more experiments with it, but now I might not have to. But you know me, I'll come up with something. So anyways, I didn't really use any specific amount of the powder dye, but I think I done like I normally do, just a 1%, which would be 1 gram of powder dye for every 200 milliliters of water. So put that in, and actually I was mixing it into the pan that I was going to dip the yarn into. So I put the yarn in there, and it said to stir it like I stirred it like every 20 minutes. I had to let it sit for an hour. And then, yeah, after that, it was ready to be rinsed out right away. Didn't have to let it sit, didn't have to let it dry. And it got pretty vibrant, actually. And I was thinking, okay, I'll wash it out. And I washed it out in Synthropol. Another thing, too, it said, and I usually do the opposite. Start with cold water, rinsing, and then work your way to hot. The cold water, and I've noticed this with my acrylics. If I dye acrylic and I want some white in it, I will rinse it off first in cold water so that the hot water doesn't blend the bleeding colors into the white and give me something in between or something paler. So that's what I did with the cotton as well. I started off with cold water and just water only. And then once it was pretty much running clear, almost completely clear, then I would run a tub of hot water and a little bit of Synthropol, and I let it soak in there for about 15 minutes. Took it out, wrung it out, rinsed it until it was clear, and dried it. And I also now have a spin dryer too, so my drying process is much faster. Thank you, Lord. But I want to show you. I feel really terrible about some of these washed out, muted colors that have been going out of my shop. I'm not frantically, but I'm just persistently trying to get the exact right formula and the exact right process to get beautiful, vibrant colors. But I'm going to show you a hank of what my Be Sweet, Don't Be Ugly Granny D cotton yarn normally has been looking like. That's what I have the most trouble with, is the red and the green in her colorway. It's Oxblood Red, both in the acid dye and in the fiber reactive dye. In the acid dye, I use avocado, but that's been out of stock for a while in the fiber reactive, so I've had to buy Muir Green. But this is what it normally looks like, and I've got my circle light here trying to get the proper, and that's showing up pretty good. I messed around with that before because it is so cloudy out today. I didn't want to go outside, but this is what it normally looks like. This is a DK weight. Like I said, I dyed fingering. Now I'm going to show you what the dip dyed yarn look like, and I hope this video is doing okay because it looks like it's freezing up a little. I'm using my Mac and I don't know why it's doing that, but bear with me, please. But this is pretty, huh? This is what the dip dyed finger and weight yarn turned out like. Isn't that gorgeous? Now let's do the side by side. Pretty big difference. I'm not totally sure that I'm completely satisfied with this. There are still some variables. Like I said, I did not let the salt water sit overnight. I could probably increase the percentage of dye stock. I didn't really go with anything specific, really. I mean, I've done 1 gram I've done a 1% solution. Most of the time, I think they recommend doing a 2%. So perhaps, I could just make it a little bit more concentrated for more bolder. Like I said, this was just an experiment, a whim, spur of the moment type experiment. So, I'm still learning. I'm still figuring it out. But that's what the dip dyed looked like. Okay, so then I took a second hank. I washed it in Synthropol. And I did not stick this one in. I stuck it in the same pan with the first dip dyed. Because I was thinking, well, that's an awful lot of work to, I mean, it's not a big deal, but I mean, it's a lot to remember to add use the salt water and then add the soda ash and then add the dye. What if everything's just together at once, like in a jar or something? And so then I decided to dip this one in there. And this is funny because it's nowhere even close. But this, I just stuck it in after everything was in there, like 15 minutes after I put that one in. They both set for an hour in the dye pot, the dye tub. So they both sat for the same amount of time. Everything else was the same, just I didn't do it in the same order as I did the other one. I just pushed it all in at once after everything was added. So that's what happened to that one. So then I'm like, okay, well, this works out pretty good. This looks a whole lot better. Let me see if I can do any color control. So that's where this hank comes in. Okay, I washed it. I laid it out on the foil like I do all my others. Then I made up my solution, just like with the before. I had the salt water, I added the soda ash, I added the dye, I got my sponge brush is what I use, and I just decided, I started on one end and I just made this solid. And then it's kind of hard to tell. As you can see, the color control did not turn out too good. But what I did was I made like a line here. It's supposed to be a line across. A line here, a line here, a line here, a line here, here. And then I made it solid on the opposite end. As you can see, maybe that's I mean, you could sort of see, but it also, I think I have a picture of that. If I have a picture of what this looked like when I first did it, I'll put that in right here. But that's what that looked like. I don't know if it was because the yarn was wet and it just kind of spread a little bit. I don't know if it's because I used a sponge brush, because they do soak up a lot of dye, and I did notice with the next hank I'll show you, the more pressure I put on it, the more it spreads. So there's two variables for me to work with right there. But otherwise, it kept its vibrancy. Here's the dip dyed one. I mean, it's got some variation in it, of course. But yeah, the vibrancy is still there. So the color control, however, is not so much. But I was going for extreme. This was like candy cane type striping. This wasn't like a section of this color, a section of that color, a section of that color. This was actual stripes. And who knows, I mean, it could actually wind up being stripes to some extent when it's worked with. I'm just looking at individual tiny thin strands. And this is really stiff because it was washed with Synthropool and there was no fabric softener. So if you're wondering, oh, and this is actually a yarn that I don't use in my shop. This was some fingering weight cotton I had gotten from Ice, and I don't like, it's kitchen cotton. So I use it for experiments. All right, so then I thought, you've seen it, didn't you? The other color in this, of course, is the green. And that one also washes out and gets muddy looking. So I went to the mirror green and thought I would try my hand with the color controlling with the green and the stripes. And this is what I come up with. I'm showing you the solid part on the end. It's quite a bit of a difference there. Again, I'm not totally sure that I'm 100% happy with this, but again, it could be the concentration. It could be the salt water not sitting long enough. But just like the other oxblood red one, oh, it's so stiff it's hard to open. I tried to do the stripes Peter was going to go to sleep on me. Tried to do the stripes. And this is really cool looking, actually. Look really close, you can see where it broke. See the brown on the top? And then the light green down below. I thought that was really cool. But I don't know if you can see it, but I do know I took a picture of this. I think it might have been right around in here is the most evident. This was where I used very little pressure, and it didn't bleed, or it definitely didn't break at all, but it didn't like bleed off as bad either. And then, I don't know why I did that just in the center. The ones on the ends, closer to the solid part, was more pressure applied. But I know I have a picture of that one, so I will insert that picture right here. So, I am eager to dye my regular colorways. In fact, I just got an order for some Granny D, which just so happens to be the hardest one to dye. So I am very much looking forward to using this brand new process for that. Stick with me, guys. I'm getting there. Once, one of these days, I'll have it all down pat, I'm sure, because I'm determined to figure this out, and I won't give up until I do. So I want to thank you guys for watching. I have to film another video, so it'll be a couple of days from now, you know, future me, like Seta says. But I hope everyone has a fantastic rest of your week and a weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy, and God bless you all. Goodbye.